Maskagro, Assalamu alaikum, Masa al khair, Sabah al khair, good morning, good afternoon, welcome, family, friends, lovers of Nubia, wherever you're tuning in from the world. Welcome to another episode of By the River. Please allow me to make an introduction in Arabic for our families in the Arabic-speaking countries. Assalamu alaikum, Ana Dima Mahmoud, نوبية محاسية من السودان. الحلقة دي من برنامج على النيل، وبنعتذر إن هي هتكون باللغة الإنجليزية، لكن إن شاء الله حنجيب ترجمة وبنعيد عرض المقابلة بالترجمة على يوتيوب، فكونوا معنا الدكتور فينسنت من أكتر الناس اللي أنا قابلتها في حياتي في حبهم للنوبة ودعمهم لمجهودات المجتمع النوبي وخصوصاً الشباب النوبي في إحياء التراث النوبي. بشكركم وتابعونا إن شاء الله بننزل الفيديو بالترجمة العربية. All right, Vincent, welcome to an episode of By the River. We are Maskagro. I will be asking you to make an introduction to tell us a little bit about yourself as we have more people join us. And then we start our conversation by the river. Please.
All right. Well, hello, I'm Vincent. I am a specialist of the Old Nubian language. I'm also one of the people behind Dotawo, a journal of Nubian studies, now I think going into its 7th issue next year, and also one of the initiators of the Union for Nubian Studies, an anarchic band of Nubiologists without clear boundaries and without clear purpose. But we do support a lot of different initiatives when it comes to broadening the scope of Nubian studies and making it more accessible both to scholars around the world and specifically to the Nubians to whom the Nubian heritage belongs. So maybe that's short enough.
That's short enough. You are also one of the co-creators and builders of NubiaFEST, to which I am most grateful to have this space. And it was ultimately one of my dreams upon starting the Nubia initiative with my sister Dalia, to have this space where Nubian communities and academics and lovers of Nubia can come together, share knowledge, and just generally celebrate this immense love for Nubia. And I have said this over and over again, and I will say it over and over again, your love for Nubia is, I can't even think of a word for it. It is inspiring. It is fulfilling. And I want to take a moment and start this conversation as we are virtually by this river until we can actually be by the river.
Wouldn't that be nice?
It would. And it will happen soon, inshallah.
Inshallah.
I can't wait. But for now, we've had this rapport and our engagement via social media. We've connected, and then we've connected again in person at the Paris conference, at the International Conference for Nubian Studies. And I could see your passion, I could feel your anger for the absence of Nubians, or at least a considerable or a representative number of Nubians at such a space, at such a conference. When it comes to academia and the presencing of Nubian communities, youth, elders, Nubian scholars as well, I could feel your anger. And to me, that not only says that you're here to just get some credits and put your books out. For me, you care about the people, you care about Nubia. The theme for this NubiaFest 2020 is No Nubia. And it is a wordplay on the response to a response to people who say there is no Nubia. Now, I was present in that room in Paris for someone who said there is no Nubia and that it's racist to use the word Nubia. I was present to see you be the only person to ring that alarm and say, no, not here. You take your political agendas elsewhere. You can't come to a space where people are dedicating their lives to the preservation of Nubia and say there is no Nubia. So I know you know Nubia. But my question to you is, who is Nubia to you?
Very tricky. Ooh. When I first entered Nubian studies, it was really kind of by accident. And one of the first Nubians, the first Nubian, most probably, that I met in that process. So I somehow started. It's maybe too long to explain how I entered Nubian studies, but I started writing. Oh, you're shaking your head and saying you want to know the whole story.
Go by the river. It's storytelling time.
All right. So I first encountered. So like I'm going to answer your question, but then you get the whole preface. So you're sitting back, yeah. grandfather has a story. So I long time ago, when I studied linguistics, you had to take a number of credits in, let's say, non-Western languages in order to broaden your scope of what is possible in the realm of linguistics, in the realm of languages. And so I had taken a class in Coptic with Jacques van der Vliet, who was the professor of Coptic back then in Leiden. He has since gone in retirement. And I had taken 2 semesters of Coptic with him. I wasn't particularly good at it. Or better put, I was very lazy. And then the 3rd semester, he said, well, we could do another semester of Coptic, but we could also do this other language, since you're a linguist, from the same region, and it's not very well understood. And since you're a linguist, we maybe could do like a seminar on it and then kind of figure out together like what's going on, because I'm kind of interested. I didn't know Jacques worked on a lot of Nubian material at the time, but I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So this was Old Nubian. This was 2003, maybe. So nearly 20 years ago. And we did the workshop together with Joost Hagen, who is currently, I think, in Germany. He's still working on the Kassir Brie materials in Coptic. And Chris Rijntjes, who was then a linguist and a professor of Egyptian. And also, he had just written a really extensive grammar of Sahidic Coptic. And so we were the 4 of us, and as a final exam, both Joost and I had to do an edition of a text, an Old Nubian text, and I chose very unwisely the memorial for King George, which I now realize is a completely anomalous text, and I should have never done it, because it's really, really one of the most difficult texts you can do, and it's like a stupid idea to do that as your like essay when you barely know the language. But I did that, and because the text had not been republished since Griffith's edition from 1928, and so there was definitely some progress to be made. And I had contact then with Gerald Brown, So Gerald Brown back then was the specialist of Old Nubian, and I had contacted him to ask if he had some more materials on the text, and because he had never published it. And he was very kind to send me all his notes and photographs of the monument. And so this was a year before he committed suicide, actually. And so I did my exam for this class, and I passed. And then it came when I was graduating. It became known that Gerald Brown had passed away. And Jacques approached me and said, "Well, Vincent, there's a free spot. Do you want to do a PhD in Old Nubian?" And I said no. Because like the last thing I would want to do back then was to spend another 4 years in linguistics and spend the rest of my life in linguistics and end up as a university professor. So I didn't. And I made a whole detour. I went to art school. I did a PhD. Then I did another PhD very unwisely. And I so, and so that work was that research was all in philosophy of language. And so I realized at some point writing my dissertation that philosophers of language have very little understanding of how language actually works, not only, in terms of linguistics, but also in terms of like the actual philological labor that goes into producing texts, and that philosophers have very little understanding of the fact that the texts on which they rely, classical canonical texts like Plato or something, are not written by Plato, but are, kind of a bunch of editors in the medieval period sitting together and like, look, let's put these manuscripts together and produce a standard text. But that's of course a highly, the result is not very stable, right? There are all kinds of variants, there are all kinds of gaps, there are all kinds of emendations, there are all kinds of interpretations. And so then to say in the 21st century, Plato said X, Y, and Z, I was like, well, wait a second, And I was like, well, if I am interested in these types of problems, then I should actually train myself as a philologist. I should be able to do editorial work. I should be able to produce an edition, a good edition, a scientifically sound edition based on a manuscript. I should know what it's like. And then I came back to Old Nubian because I was like, well, there's no specialist of this language alive anymore. The language is not well understood. And there's all this material out there that's probably still unedited. Like, it's a gold mine. I should totally take this as my little case study. That's what I thought back then, right? You imagine? My little case study in order to then go back to philosophy. So I wrote to my, I see you're highly amused. I wrote to my former professor, Jacques van der Vliet, is like, listen, I want to go back. I want to get back in, right? It's like the mafia. I want to get back in, and I have this article. One other important element of the story is that I was in Brussels at the time, and I read a front page review. I remember very well a front page review of Claude Rie's book. So this must have been 2010 or 11. So 10 years ago, of Claude Rie's book, Le Méroïtique. So his big book on Méroïtique had just come out, and there was a front page review in the Belgian newspaper Le Soir. And it was about the description of Méroïtique, and I was like, oh my God, he's describing all these kind of things that are like Nubian, and all kinds of light bulbs went off in my head. I was like, I need to write an article. And so I contacted Jacques van der Vliet. I was like, listen, can I write an article? I just read this. I immediately bought the book, of course. I read the book. I was like, this guy is definitely on the right track, and I have a lot of stuff to say about Old Nubian because all kinds of things I suddenly remembered, and I wrote this. I think I published the edition of the St. George Monument, King George Monument, plus a long appendix with all kinds of grammatical ideas. And I remember Jacques wrote to me an email. I asked him, is it okay if I add an appendix with some considerations on Old Nubian grammar? Because I have some ideas based on Claude Rie's book. And it's like, yeah, just add whatever you want because it's probably the best thing that you ever write about Old Nubian. And I was like, what? What? And so I kind of took it as a challenge because I was like, no, it's not. No, I'm going to write more. And so So I'm not sure, like, if I would have done all this extra work if he hadn't written this kind of shady email. It was probably not meant to be shady, but like, and probably quite based on
Are we
reality in a sense.
sure
Like,
though? Are we sure? Maybe they understood.
yeah, maybe there was some like reverse psychology going on there. If so, I definitely have to thank him.
So do we.
So yeah, that's how I got my first text published on Old Nubian. And then two things happened. The first thing is that Angelica Jacobi had the great idea of assembling an Old Nubian panel for the Nederlandse Linguistics Conference, in which she invited everybody who ever worked on this language, including me, who at that point had published exactly one chapter. And two, that somehow, I do not know how, maybe an online forum of sorts, I came in contact with Giovanni Ruffini. Oh yes, Giovanni Ruffini at that time had also done very interesting work on Old Nubian, and I had reached out to him because he had written an absolutely fantastic article on Akasha Ibrahim text, and I was like, oh my god, this guy is an example of how it should be done. And I'd reached out to him, and he said, oh, by the way, I am in contact with this Nubian guy, Shafiel Jazuli, and you should meet him. You should talk to him, because I was running a publishing house back then, and I was like doing all kinds of weird language stuff, and and Shafir had all kinds of ideas about publishing. And so Giovanni put me in touch with Shafir, and we hit it off, and that's how we made the first. And I was like, why are we making all these Old Nubian editions and there's no edition of any Old Nubian text in Nubian language? That's kind of weird. I was very naive. So I was like, this is really weird. Like, obviously there should be Nubian editions of all these texts because, like, it's there. So I was like, Shafir, do you want to do like a Nandandi Old Nubian bilingual edition of the Miracle of Saint Mina, which is like one of the nicest, well-preserved full story text? And he's like, yeah. And so we did that. And then we all met at that Nederlandse Linguistic Conference. So Giovanni was there, Alexandros was there, Adam was there, Jagor was there, Shafir was there. And I remember, this is also a really funny story. So I remember that it was in Cologne, I think. And so I knew no one, right? I had no idea what I was going to. Right? I didn't know anyone. I was just invited to go to this conference, and I was like, okay, I had booked some cheap room in a youth hostel and just went on my own dime to see these people. And so, especially Shafir, because I had a really fun time with Shafir. He's a really wonderful guy, a good communist. So, like, we get along. And entered, I think, the night before the conference, there was going to be this dinner in a Persian restaurant. And so I entered the restaurant, and I saw a bunch of Nubian-looking people there. And I was wondering which of these guys is Shafir, because we had never seen face-to-face, and we were just writing by email. And then I saw one guy sitting kind of on his own at one of the tables, drinking a beer. And I was like, and none of the other Nubians was drinking any alcohol. And I was like, that's Shafir. And he was the only Nubian in the restaurant enjoying a beer. I was like, I like you. And that's how I met Shafir. And we had a wonderful time together, and I eventually ended up meeting his family and staying in his place, and so you going to his village. I mean, the whole story. So I'm meeting his extended family, who are all politically active and very much involved. So, hey, man.
Hi, man. Mas kagro.
So, yeah. Oh yeah, your question, who is Nubia? Well, my first encounter with Nubia is definitely in the figure of Shafir. Yeah. Like, he, like, completely open, completely welcoming. Yeah, a good friend. enjoyable, good food, a lovely wife, Faiza, who speaks wonderful Nandi. And knows exactly the type of food I like. When I came, I did my first excavations maybe in 2017, 2018, and this was still under Godlewski, his last season in Dongola. And the man hated food. There was like, I don't know exactly what's wrong with him, but he definitely had no good relationship with food. And so everybody else suffered as a result. And I remember we left after 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and we were just in, one of these little buses to back to Khartoum. And the first roadside restaurant, like, we just jumped out and just whatever, full, okay, full, please, a lot. And we just famished, ate, I don't know, shitloads of food at this random place, just eat something serious after 3 weeks instead of like instant soup, literally, and some type of like overboiled rice. So like we were just like, this is the best meal on the planet, and it was just this huge dish of food. Anyhow, I arrived at Shafir's family house in Khartoum because I would stay for a couple of some extra week. And like Faiza had like one look at me as she just went to the kitchen. She didn't even talk to me. She was like, "You just stay here."
You need to be fed.
It was completely clear. Like, she looked at me as she was like, "There's something wrong. Like, I'm going to cook now. Oh, you stay here in the living room. Like, don't move."
Wow.
Yeah, and she made my favorite thing is this salad with a peanut sauce and tomatoes. Huh?
Dakwa.
Dakwa, exactly.
Dakwa.
It's like, it's the best thing on this planet. So, and she remembered that I liked it. So she made this huge dakwa salad. Yeah, that was really good. I was really famished. All right, so
Nubia to you is good food and good welcome.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if you're studying a language, they might as well have good food.
I mean, yes. I mean, it's fair. It's fair. I take a moment to say salam to Islam. Islam says greetings and respect to Dr. Vincent. He had heard a lot about your love for Nubians.
Word travels.
Your reputation precedes you. That's the power of love. And Samah is here from Canada. Thank you for joining us, Samah. We're here speaking with Dr. V. And if you didn't hear the story of the two doctors, once we're done with this live, if you go back to the beginning, you will hear the journey and why we call him Dr. V. Okay. Ooh, that was a journey and some memories.
It's like 20-minute answer to your one question.
Journey.
It was a difficult question. What can I say? Like, I really need to like.
Let me
deliver.
say why I'm doing this. Why I'm interested in familiarizing or connecting. When I say Nubia connects, I mean that upon starting my journey to Nubia, for Nubia, towards Nubia, with Nubia, a whole world opened up for me. And I got to see and feel emotions that I really never knew I could feel, to a space that I had not physically been to or been in. I had visited Luxor for maybe 6 hours. I'd never been to Aswan at the time. I had never been to my village. In fact, I'd never been to my village until January 2020. But everyone had a different, and to date, everyone has a different view of Nubia, has a different relationship with Nubia. And in some cases, that's used as a means of dividing the lovers of Nubia. Like somehow there is only one way of loving Nubia. Like somehow there is only one way to uplift Nubia, to be in Nubia's presence. And the more I do this work, the more I am present in this work, I say and I repeat that Nubia, there's a little bit of Nubia everywhere, and there's a little bit of Nubia in everyone. And so my goal with this By the River series is to get to see all the different ways that the love of Nubia and the love for Nubia manifests and is present in people's heart and in their work and in their lives. Because for me, your love for Nubia isn't just in your work. I see it in so many different aspects of your life. And the more you and I connect and I get to know you as a human, the more I see that. The same with Alexandros, the same with Minna. Like how Minna loves Nubia is, you know, it's a completely, anyway. So this is my goal. I want to know who Nubia is. Like the way I see, you know how there's a saying in Arabic, like tell me who your friends are and I tell you who you are. I don't know if that's, I'm sure it's translated in some.
No, but it's
something.
And
But
it's something, and it's something to live by, I would say.
Yes.
It's definitely something I live by. I want my, I mean, like I have this tattoo, wait, I can see it, like, it's not visible here. I have this tattoo and it says, and it's a line from a friend of mine who is a poet. And it says, the friend is the face of the imagination. And sometimes people ask me, what does that mean? It's like, well, it means exactly what it says. The friend is the face of the imagination. Your friend is what represents your imagination. Your friends show, in a way, who you are and your character and what happens inside your head. And I think that's exactly what your saying says. Show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are.
Yes.
I believe this is a very true way of assessing somebody.
It's also why I chose By the River, because for me, the river holds truth. Water holds truth, holds memory. And she rejects all that is lie, all that is in conflict with that vibration of truth. She's a reflection. And for me, in many ways, I've said this, Nubia is a mirror. How you choose to look at that mirror, she will reflect you. She will reflect your intention towards her. She will reflect how you view her. And if you view her in love, then she will light that up. And if you are viewing her in anything that is attempting to erase her, she will only shine all that is ugly in your intention. And with that, I take a moment. Oh, we have comments here. Apologies, family, if I'm not immediately looking at the comments. This conversation, and Vincent and I can have endless conversation for endless amounts of hours, though I will be mindful of time. But these conversations is ultimately what leads to ways that we can collaborate and come together to have spaces like the Nubia Fest, because I remember in 2020, it was a conversation like this that gave birth to Nubia Fest as an idea. So I'm very grateful to that. I want to take a moment to acknowledge Radio Ahmed from Aswan, who is doing master research about Nubian architecture in Egypt. Can you provide me with the documents?
Connect with Minna.
Yes. Radio Ahmed, thank you for your question. I believe you're, like Vincent was saying, your best contact is Dr. Minna Aga. She had a session yesterday, and she will be having another session later on today, hopefully. Stay tuned, check our calendar. I will place the link for the calendar and you will see the update there. Keep watching the Nubia Fest page on Facebook, and I will take this question to her. Ooh, Vincent, where have you gone? Have we lost you, Vincent?
No, I'm here. I'm here. Okay. I somehow, internet thing happened, but I'm back.
Yes, we do. Okay, we have another question, and this is Islam. تابعنا. طبعا يا إسلام بتحرجني بقراية العربي ده لأنه مش you know me in Arabic, I'm not very fluent in it. تابعنا عن كيف تصدي الدكتور فينسنت لمحاولة تعريب اللغة النوبية من قبل دكتورة في جامعة أفريقيا. هلا حدثنا عن بعض ما حدث. So Islam is asking, he heard about your efforts in standing up to or stopping the attempts of the Arabization of the Nubian language with a doctor or a scholar at the Africa University, at the University of Africa, I think.
Maybe he's referring to the incident in Paris.
I think so. Yes, I think because it was written. I think it was written by Samia.
Yes, yeah.
And it was only read.
I mean,
we're not going to put this here, but Islam is interested in a little bit of what happened. What motivated you? Why do you feel this is an issue as someone who studied Old Nubian?
Okay. Well.
And as a lover of Nubia, obviously.
Well, the thing that I mean, it's difficult to rehash the entire argument, right? But
yes,
basically, yeah, there are some bootleg videos of the exchange, but so I say, so of course there are many arguments that can be made against somebody saying Nubia does not exist, right? But we were there at a scholarly conference, and so in that context, what I find important is what you can basically call is a rigorous argument. Like, we try to argue for certain positions. Oh.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, we try to argue for certain positions in a rigorous way in order to convince our opponents or our colleagues, basically, not even opponents, our colleagues, of the validity of our argument. And so even if you want to make the argument that Nubia doesn't exist, you need to give arguments, you need to give proof. And so the problem of the speaker was there was no proof whatsoever. Like, this was my main point, is like the only thing that could convince me in the place where we are in a conference of scientists is proof. And the only thing that he was basically saying, it's like, I don't like that people call this Nubia, and I am Sudanese, and therefore you are wrong. And I was like, well, that's not really a scientific argument, is it? Like, I'm sorry, sir, but like, this doesn't fly. There are many, many reasons why the word Nubia is complicated to be used, especially, for example, for a civilization that's 4,000 years old. I mean, can we talk about, Kerma pottery in Nubian terms? This is a real discussion in science. This is a real discussion, and it's an important discussion. It deals with how do we talk about continuities of culture? How do we talk about different migration movements? There are many, many things that complicate the uses of the word Nubia for older historical periods. This is completely true, but that doesn't mean that you can just say, I'm Sudanese, and you cannot say the word Nubian because I'm Sudanese. Like, no, that's not how it works. Like, you either provide convincing scientific or academic arguments and try to convince your colleagues in the room, or you just shut up. Like, don't waste my time. So that was my argument, because it's an argument that is fit, I think, for that specific context. Now, there are many arguments to be made, including the fact that it's maybe not a good idea, as somebody who claims to represent a state that has for decades oppressed a minority group, to insist that this group does not exist. That's probably not the right thing to do, especially if all these Nubians in the room. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe don't do that. Like, that's kind of ugly. that will be another way. That will be another way to think about it. I try to uh, provide the academic argument against this complete charlatan.
Well, academically as well, there have been arguments that are made that academically speaking, the proof there is that Nubia is not a Nubian word and that it was imposed by the Romans.
Sorry, is English an English word? What the fuck? I'm sorry. The fact that an ethnonym is not originating from that language is like the most obvious thing in on the planet. The word France comes from the Franks, who didn't even speak French-related language. The word English comes from the Angles, who came from Denmark. I'm sorry, like every single country, it does not come from the country where it's from. So whatever. Honestly.
Fair. We're not gonna
go.
Yeah.
You know how many Berbers there are who are not Berber? I'm sorry, like whatever. The Berbers don't call themselves Berber; they call themselves Tuareg. So like, whatever. It's not evidence. In fact, you're pointing out a rather universal tendency of the names of populations being not the way that they refer to them themselves. So like, whatever. Sorry.
No, please.
I mean, it's like this is
concerned. As far as I'm concerned, and this is a personal opinion, there are no sorries or worries in the love of Nubia. If you love Nubia, you love Nubia. You show up for Nubia the way you show up for Nubia. And I don't feel inclined or obliged to entertain someone telling me, or anyone who loves Nubia, how to love Nubia, how to show up.
Look. The issue is that our conversation on whether Nubia exists or not is taking away space from what actually matters, which is the research and preservation of Nubian culture. Like, I don't even want to have this discussion. Honestly, I don't give a fuck about this discussion. No, I am like, this is not what I'm busy with. I'm not like, my work doesn't prove or disprove Nubia. It researches Nubia, and to that extent, it is very real.
Well, let's speak about that. Let's speak about your journey with the preservation, the protection, the promotion of the endangered Nubian heritage through your work with Old Nubian, but also through your work with Nubian communities. Because I see, and obviously you're not the only one, sure, but I see it more presently with you than I do with other scholars, presencing the need of presencing the community.
It's very simple. It's very simple. My work is worthless unless it serves current Nubian people. This is how I see my own work. Why? Because like otherwise, I you know, like what is the value of knowledge of Old Nubian, like if not to provide, how would I say this? If it is anyone's heritage, it is the Nubians' heritage. And so the only value, or I would say its most important value, is for Nubians. And therefore, if I am unable to communicate my knowledge of Old Nubian to current Nubians, then I'm pretty much wasting my time. That's at least how I see it. I don't think I do this enough. I don't speak any Nubian language in any significant way, or Arabic, which is
I'm just gonna put it out
there. Well, thank you for like. No, but like this is something that I'm very much aware of, and it's something that I really much want to change. But like my life has a limited capacity for acquiring new languages, or at least in terms of like my work week. So no, this is really what I believe. I don't think I could. I don't think I would be interested in my own work. I don't think I would be interested to pursue my work if it were not for the Nubian community, who have insistently supported me. So like it is not a one-way street. Like I get a lot of support from the Nubian community for my work.
Okay,
This is not a one-way. This is not a one-way thing where I'm just trying to give things. No, it's a communication. Like I do this and continue to do this because I get so much back for it. Like this conversation, like many other conversations I have with Nubian scholars, like the many other conversations, I have with people working in related fields. I get something from it as well. And I don't think I would get anything back for it if I weren't actively engaging the Nubian community. Then I would just be whatever, contributing to the history of whatever, Christianity or something. I mean, it's utterly boring.
Your honesty is ever so refreshing, Vincent. And again,
which is the reason I am not working at a university.
Okay, so we are taking a trip through memory lanes by this river as we sip on what we sip on in my sister's cup here, to live in the sunshine. And when I asked you who Nubia was, you said it was the face of the first Nubian you have engaged with. It's the embodiment of the first Nubian you have engaged with. The welcoming, the presence.
I am pretty sure that if somehow I hadn't connected well with Shafir, I would have abandoned the whole project. No, I mean, why? Right? I mean, like,
yeah. We are grateful for Shafir. We need to find Shafir.
Honestly, because like, I mean, this was literally like a hunch. Yeah, there was no plan.
I said this in one of my sessions earlier. Is that even if you do have a plan to Nubia, for me, she has a way, and of course, everything is divinely guided. But I feel like whatever your plan is, if it's not in alignment with the truth of Nubia, if it's not reflected in that river, Nubia will redirect. Like, stop. Okay. Redirect.
Well, I have a number of questions for Nubia about Old Nubian grammar, if she would care to answer.
I'm glad you are bringing this up, because as I am saying, we are sitting by this Nile, and I want you to close your eyes for a moment and really presence that river. Really, just take a moment and really presence that river. And before you ask the river a question, she asks you a question. What is that question?
Oh Lord, you really thought about these things, huh? I don't know. Probably. I mean, like, probably. Why don't you have a swim?
Vincent, you don't swim?
Well, yeah, but if I'm sitting by the river, I'm not swimming at that very moment.
Okay, fair.
No, I love swimming, and I love swimming in the Nile. So, like, probably when I see the Nile, and before I ask anything to the Nile, she'll probably tell me, "Why don't you have a swim?" And I'm like, "That sounds like a very, very good idea. Will you please keep the fucking crocodiles out of my way?"
Okay, so let's say you took a dip. And as you are in the Nile, she whispers something in your ears. What does she say?
I don't like borders.
Oof. The truth, nothing but the truth.
That's what a river does, right? The river flows.
Yes.
And I think one of the great injustices is precisely the damming up of the Nile. I mean, an injustice obviously towards the Nubian people, but I would also say to the river itself, against the river itself and the ecosystems it supports over its how many thousands of miles running course. Not only the Aswan Dam, but also the Merowe Dam, and also the Great Renaissance Dam, and also the White Nile Dam, All these fucking damn
All
dams.
these damn dams.
Yeah.
What this? I need to take a moment to digest that. It's so true. How would you
I mean,
reassure the river?
well, the good thing is that the S1 dam is silting up, and so like that thing will be pretty much useless within the next couple of decades, right? So like, might as well tear it down. Like, I also don't really understand how these people that develop these things think. It's like, yeah, it will work for a while, but you remember that the Nile brings all this fertile soil, right? Like, it goes and fertilizes the land every fucking year, and that soil is not going to suddenly magically disappear, so it will probably like keep up with a giant hill before your dam, making it useless because it takes away the pressure. So like, it's also like very short-term engineering thinking. I mean, you can dam it up, but the Nile will probably just eat it away. I mean, maybe not in our lifetime, but
Yeah.
sure thing that that's not going to last. So at some point, she'll be free again.
Yes, she will. Yes.
I mean, unless they keep reinforcing that now, but they probably won't. I mean, building a dam is sexy. Reinforcing a dam is like, ugh.
She will rise, like Nubia herself. Okay. With your work with Nubian communities, so we've had Mu'min come on earlier to say hello. I also know, and you were present with in Arbab's session about his Nubian typeface. You've obviously worked and engaged with the Nubia initiative on more than one front, and all the other many Nubians and Nubian communities that you have worked with. If you were to reflect on that journey, like your research, your scholarship aside, just engaging with the Nubian people today, who are either still in your life, still impacting your life, or have at any point just crossed your path and left that with you, what would you tell Nubia about her children?
I know what I would say, but I'm not sure if you ever like it.
Hey, this isn't about me. This is about Nubia. It's not.
They're not learning your language. they're not learning your language.
Sorry, we're trying. Some of us are trying. Some of us are really trying.
I know.
Okay, what would you complain to Nubia about, and what would you assure Nubia with?
Well, I would definitely complain about they're not maybe even they're not learning your language, but they're not teaching their children your language. I mean, even the most avid language advocates and activists that I've met, their children are not fluent in their native languages. And I constantly reiterate, it's like, you can make as many flyers or organize as many workshops as you want, but unless even your own children are not speaking it, this is all wasted energy. Because it's a generational thing. And it's deep, it goes deep. And it's difficult. I understand, but like, from a language preservation point of view, working on your generation, it's already a lost cause. You have to work on the next one. That's the only work that's worth doing. So that's for example is why Moment's work is so great, because it's an app. It engages a younger generation, like his generation, and a younger group. That's why our Bab's work and Rami's work with the children's books are important. That's your target audience. It's children, but even more than targeting children in a school context or even in an extracurricular context, it is in the family. You have to talk Dandi, Nobin, Matoki in your family. That's just how it works, unfortunately.
It's not unfortunate. It makes sense. If you ask
Yeah,
me, it's
it
I mean,
totally makes
it's
sense, but
fair, right?
it's also the most difficult thing because, and I understand why it's difficult because as a parent, you also want to give your children the best possible future. And that future most probably includes learning the majority language, which is Arabic in most cases, or English in case you're born, or whatever language of the country that you're born in as a diaspora. And unfortunately, parents still often think that learning more than one language is not beneficial in the sense that, it will slow you down, you get confused. Children won't get confused. Children can easily learn like 3, 4 languages and they won't be confused. Trust me. But like that's the linguist me speaking, but that's not, let's say, common wisdom. And so to fight against that prejudice, that is really the difficult thing. What is reassuring is that Nubians all across the world continue to identify as Nubians, even if they no longer speak the language. Which I think is fantastic because that means that there's the potential for revitalization. And there have been quite some examples recently of successful language revitalization projects. I mean, look at New Zealand, where Maori classes are now basically booming. Look at several Native American communities. It is possible, but it requires enormous communal effort, and I would even say it probably will require state support in one way or the other, because without access to the school system, you're not going to hack it.
Even as things change today, even as traditional education is now shifting post-COVID, post-things, and all these introductions of e-learning and all of that.
Yeah, of course, all of that is nice. But at the end of the day, the state mandates children from age, whatever, 5 till 18 will need to be 8 hours per day in school, and I decide where they're going to learn. And so that is such an enormous mandate that, all your Sunday classes or like extracurricular apps or whatever, they're nice and they're important. But the power lies with the state curriculum, and that's where you'll have to go. That has to be reformed. It will have to include native Sudanese and Egyptian languages as part of the curriculum, as part of the final examinations, as part of something that should be learned by also non-Nubians. If you live in northern Sudan and you don't identify as Nubian, well, better also learn it. Why not? I mean, I had to learn Greek or like German or French. I'm not German or French. Learn it. It's the language of your neighbors. Why not? It's enriching.
Well, why not? Can have more than one dimension, as I'm sure you're familiar.
Of course. But from like a purely educational point of view, learn as many as you want. It can only be enriching. Hell, why not have Nubian children also learn Beja? Why not?
That's again, we go back to Nubia Connects, because my learning about other African heritages, other endangered African cultures and practices, and indigenous African languages, for me did not start until I started connecting with Nubia, until I started pursuing Nubia, until I started learning about Nubia, to recognize, oh, there's so much more. There's such wisdom. And when I say wisdom, when I think of wisdom and Nubia, I think of that first presentation for Marcus Jaeger that I had heard at the University of Exeter. And it was part of a panel that Herman Bell had put together for a Brismus conference. And there he was talking about, all these different proverbs that are around the world, but can be traced back to a Nubian proverb. And it was so mind blowing to me, because it's like, okay, so these words carry such insights that are applicable well beyond the language itself surviving. And it has been taken and changed and applied around the world. It was one of my first, let's see, there's something. Yes, definitely. Okay, well, as we wrap up, can you think of a memory, a moment where something happened? It was either your work being received or you presenting it, or just hearing about something, some effort for the revitalization of Nubian language that had you thinking it's all worth it. We get attacked there, people looking at revitalizing this language, revitalizing this heritage in so many ways, can get attacked viciously for various reasons, and arguably none of them are personal. But can you think of a time, because for me, I need to hold on to that it's worth it, that whatever these attacks are, whatever these things are, it's just what I'm doing. Can you think of one that comes?
Oh yeah, easily. Many. For years, I have been dissatisfied by the ugly existing typefaces for Nubian. When I see Sophia, my heart bleeds. I have made impassioned pleas to my colleagues that please, we need to gather some money. It isn't much. Hire a type designer that knows their shit and develop a proper Nubian font for our publications. Because it looks ugly as hell and it doesn't do justice to cultural heritage that we are researching. Not only that, a beautiful font is an enormously powerful vehicle for improving literacy rates. When something, and I'm a publisher, I know about letters and I know about beauty. And when something looks good, you want to read it. When I read a book that is badly typeset, I want to throw it out of the window and burn it. I don't care the value of the thoughts in it. If it is ugly and my eyes hurt, I want to burn it. So, then last year at NubiaFest, our Bab came and said, I'm going to take this up. And then he made what he made. I was like, this makes it all worth it. Honestly. Like the fact that somebody who has no experience in type design, but somehow feels called to take on what is arguably a shitload of work, unremunerated, purely because he believes that, there is some sense in what I'm saying. I thought it was absolutely astonishing, and it's probably one of the things I am most proud of. Like, whenever I see that font, I'm like, I tear up. I'm like, oh my God, somebody did this. It is amazing. It's going to be even more amazing because he has all kinds of ideas that are mind-blowing. And it makes it worth it. For like nearly a decade, I screamed into the void about this. That somehow someone listened. And that not only listened, but they did a good job. Because imagine if somebody listened and they do a bad job. And then you're like, oh my God. Oh Lord, now there's something that is kind of halfway there and it's like still ugly as fuck. Oh please. Oh please, why did I help this person? Why did I put my time in this? Fortunately, that's not the case.
Unfortunately, it is starting so many different things and instigating. And as if you've missed the presentation of Arbab on this just being the beginning.
It's just the beginning. It's just the beginning, and it snowballs. Once one person, and then another type designer came out of the woodworks. Like, I'm making type design based on henna design. So like, once you show that it works, people were like, oh, light bulb, like, I'm gonna do the same. Please do. Like, ideas are there to be stolen. No, honestly.
Well, there's plenty of that going on, the stealing of the ideas, but we're not here to talk about that.
But what is important is to steal generously.
Well, to steal and share what you're stealing, is it?
Yes. Steal and allow others to steal from you. This is the trick.
Stealing? But then is it stealing?
I don't know. Like, it's a nice. It's probably not. It's probably sharing. Whatever.
Very Robin Hoodie. Very Robin Hoodie of you.
Wow. Stealing, sharing, borrowing, whatever.
Well, it goes back to nothing being new under the sun.
No, and not only that. I'm sorry. Like, you have so few ideas that you're afraid that they're stolen. Like, please steal my ideas, because like my task list is too long, and if you take some of those tasks, like I'm waiting for people to do more old Nubian stuff. I mean, honestly, like I don't want to do this until I die. I probably will, which is the horrible part.
It's a calling. As much as for Arbab it was a calling. As much as
it may be a calling, but I have a call wait list of like, I don't know, a year, and I would like to take some other calls.
Is this how we're ending this chat by the river?
I don't know, like in a conference call.
Oh wow. You're ridiculous. You're ridiculous. You're ridiculous. You're ridiculous.
It's one of my redeeming qualities.
It is. And we love you for it. We love you for it. We being the royal we here.
Actually, if you really think about it, that's what a river constantly does. Conference calling.
Tell me more.
No, I've got to leave it at that.
To be continued. To be continued.
Precisely.
Wow. Well, Vincent, I watered and emotional in thanking you, because there's, again, recognizing how we get called the way we get called, and how different these calls are, and how different Nubia presents in each of our lives. I am most grateful for how you embody your love for Nubia in all your truth, and how you presence your truth in all your love for Nubia. And I am forever grateful. And this is, again, just the beginning. We've been at this, 2018. I mean, it was a little bit before, obviously, with the connecting with Mu'min and Walid and the Nubian app, but well beyond that. But that meeting in Paris over some ramen.
Was it ramen?
It was.
Oh, you have a better memory than I do.
It was one of those meetings that, ultimately shift the trajectory of things. Because,
of the planet.
There was a break in the space-time continuum as far as I'm concerned. There was a break in the space-time continuum.
Antimatter, everything.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, so it's not because I was angry. I was seeing that the opening of this conference and looking around to try and find Nubians and in this space and not be able to see us. Like, I really felt unseen. There were Nubians. I'm not saying there were not Nubians there. There were Nubians there.
Yeah.
Yes, I acknowledge, I recognize. But the ratio of our presence, it just...
Yes, and how that presence is contextualized, and, like how the conference is structured, all of these things.
And I just remember in my head saying, this so needs to drastically change, but also acknowledging, as someone with a PhD in Sudanese foreign policy and international legitimacy, and having pinpointed and highlighted all the, hypocritical double standards within this international system altogether, I recognize the power of institutionalism. I recognize the power of institution in religion. I recognize the power of institution in academia. I recognize the power of institution in the system that we live in. That's basically designed to divide us. And then we have this conversation, you and I see that you are just as angry, if not angrier, because you have been in this field for longer, because you have seen this be a consistent.
But it's also, I mean, for me, it's also like, what do I spend my energy on? Like, yes, a lot of institutions are fucked up, but then again, I'm not part of them. I'm interested in building my own institutions. And I think that is much more interesting. That's why the Union for Nubian Studies is interesting, because it's like, it's a scholarly organization, but what is its governance structure? Who knows? Whatever you want. And I think that is, like, that opens all kinds of possibilities that do not exist with other with other societies for Nubiologists or Egyptologists or whatever they exist. So I have always grown up. I've come of age in a DIY mentality. You do it yourself. Like, I'm not counting on any institution to support me. I never have, really, in any case. And whenever an institution has supported me, I have a tendency to get on the stage they provide me and then kind of like destroy and waste the whole, like, become very critical and unbearable, such that they never make the same mistake again, which is probably a good thing.
Well, I mean, what's the point of having a stage if you're not going to use it to say the truth, even if it means...
I agree, but like, that's not always never appreciated, actually.
Well, it's appreciated. It's a matter of whose appreciation is.
But it's never appreciated by the institution.
Oh, no.
And so, like, institutions and I do not have a good relationship.
I'll say. And I think that's a big part of why we get along. In that, I don't feel like I owe any institution anything so that I might massage the ego of those running it. Mm-hmm. Because I understand that even if you are inviting me because I have something to offer.
Yeah, well, I mean, and not only that, you know exactly what I'm going to offer. Like, let's like... right,
you want to reconsider, like, go back and think about you inviting me, and then just like visualize that coming to reality, and then if you're still sure about it, let's chat.
No, but I mean, but this this is actually the best way. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you create your own discourse, your own ideas, your own institutions outside the major institutions, but you do it so well that the established institutions cannot get around you, and at some point they'll have to invite you, and you will use that opportunity to demolish them.
Can you think of an example where you've done that, and then we will close this session, because I am respectful of your time.
Well, demolition never really works, right? But yeah. Oh, but this goes back a long time, and it's not going to be respectful of time at all.
Can we get the headlines?
Yeah, when I do feel
like the river thing is going to keep going. I think it started at NubiaFest, but I feel like it will continue.
So when I was in high school, so this is like, but it gives you a sense of how it works. When I was in high school, there was like a student council, but it was kind of ailing, not doing anything really, and completely not prestigious, or like people would not engage. It didn't do anything really. And so somehow I felt called to get into the student council, become its president, and completely revitalize the thing. And I built it up according to what I thought a student council should do, which is to come up for the rights of the student. And so there used to be a student, what would I call it, like a regulation, which in part stipulated the types of punishments. And so the problem in our school is that there was like a wide, how do you call it, randomness in the way that certain students were treated when they were expelled. Like some of them had to do this, some of them had to do that, and there was really not a common standard. And so as a student, it really depended on how much you are liked by the powers that be in order for which punishment to be meted out for whatever transgression you did. And I was like, no, this needs to be codified. Like there can be no randomness in these types of, because it's unjust. And so I started this whole process of reformulating the student guidelines, pushing it through all the institutions and getting it approved, and then implemented, and then forcing the school to actually hand out the regulations in paper on the first day to all new high school students, so that they knew their rights. That's what I mean. It's like you build up your own institutions, and then when it's strong enough and you have enough power, you use it.
Rise like the phoenix.
Yes. You rise and you make people aware of their rights. My parents were livid. Because like I was, that I had to sneak out of the house in order to do student council meetings. Because my parents were like, you're neglecting your schoolwork, and like your grades are going down, and what are you doing? I mean, and so I lied to my parents that I was playing video games with friends, while instead I was holding student council meetings. So I had to hide my political activities. I had to hide my political activity behind innocuous high school boy shit. I don't know. I was like 15 or something.
Oh
16.
my goodness.
14. No, I was about 14. Yeah. I had to engage in clandestine political activity already at young age.
Well, I, for one, am grateful that you've had this experience early enough and continue building.
It was formative. It was formative.
I bet.
It was formative. Hide your true intentions, build up your institutions, and then attack.
You keep saying things at the very last minute, and then I just want to keep going. It's again like the river. It's like the river. Like, because now all I want to be like about your next project, but I'm not going to go there. We're not going to go there.
No, and I am not going to talk about it either. Okay. But you'll probably hear about it next year.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And we will be talking about NubiaFest next year.
Oh Lord, God forbid. Yes.
Oh, come on. By Saturday, which we'll have our closing.
It's tomorrow. Which is tomorrow.
No, it struck me yesterday as Thursday, and I'm like, oh, we're halfway through, and I'm like, we have 2 days left.
Mm-hmm.
So as much as time has come and flown and gone, and as much as it is tiring, and it takes all this energy, it is all worth it. For me, it is all worth it to see all this coming through. It is so all worth it. And on some level, as much as I want it to end so that I can actually sleep and stop operating on half an hour naps or an hour and a half intervals, I don't want it to end. I always wanted to.
So let's end it now then.
Yes. Thank you for always bringing back. Okay.
Grounding.
We are the river. So very grateful for you, for all your work, for all your efforts, for Nubia, for Nubian communities, for your love. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep flowing like the river.
Can't do anything else.
Yeah. And for all our fam joining us, we thank you for tuning in. We thank you for your questions. We thank you for the love you are showing this wonderful, magical being that we have here on screen. Stay tuned as more sessions, the Nubia Fest, continue today. We've posted the calendar in the comments. Find it out. Keep refreshing it, because I guarantee more will be added today and tomorrow. And with that, we say, Afia Logo.